Hi, this is Ralph Zuranski, creator of the In Search of Heroes program, and I'm on the phone today with Dr. Dean Howell, the creator of neurocranial restructuring. It is definitely one of the most powerful therapies that I've ever discovered in 40 years of health research to help me just feel better and overcome a lot of the accidents and injuries that I've had, especially a lot of the head injuries that I've received. And so, Dr. Howell, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Ralph.
I wanted to ask you, what is your definition of heroism?
I think that a heroic action is any action that a person undertakes when it creates fear for them. So you're foolhardy if you go ahead and do anything, and you're a hero if you realize the dangers and decide to do it anyway.
You know, a lot of people that I've talked to on the Heroes program already, you know, they look at firefighters, military troops, people like that are getting paid to put their lives on the line, and of course every one of them is a hero for doing their job. Do you believe that heroism can also be defined as people that constantly do the right thing when nobody's looking and do it in times when they're not getting any credit for the wonderful things they do for others?
Oh, absolutely. Remember that what I said is that when it takes courage to defy the odds to go through and accomplish this goal, and the idea of being shunned by society for your actions, or just to receive no recognition, in a sense, is overcoming adversity as well, just to accomplish those goals. That is heroism.
So basically doing the right thing, irregardless whether people believe that it's the right thing or not, it's basically following what your heart tells you to do?
Yes, I think it does. Yeah, there's a quality of intellect and feeling that is important to be true to in one's life.
What is your perspective on goodness, ethics, and moral behavior?
Well, I view those as sort of interlinked concepts. Depends on your spiritual background as to what constitutes good and bad, but there are many commonly accepted concepts of good and bad. Good generally being helpful to people, including yourself, and being bad is when you're taking advantage or damaging people, either accidentally or willfully. Then, in terms of the ethics, I think that it's important for a person to establish rules of behavior, that would be the ethics, that are consistent with their concepts of goodness. And then, finally, their moral behavior is making sure that in their everyday actions that they follow their own ethical plans, so that they maintain goodness in their actions. So to me, those are interlinked concepts.
You know, I think being a part of recognized as a hero, it's important to sacrifice something to do that. In some cases, in the extreme cases, it's sacrificing your life. What principles would you be willing to sacrifice your life for?
I suppose it would be when I'm confronted with other people losing their lives.
So you would be willing to sacrifice your life to save somebody's life that you didn't even know that person?
I like to think so, at least. I haven't been in that situation yet.
Yes, I guess that's a situation that calls for an all-out effort, and you never know until that situation actually shows up.
That's right.
I know that a lot of people have struggled in their lives. I think everybody does. What was the lowest point in your life, and how did you change your life path to win a victory over all the obstacles?
Well, I think in many ways, the lowest point of my life was when Washington State took away my medical license for giving B12 shots. I didn't harm anybody, but despite that, the naturopathic medical profession in Washington State, pretty much everyone viewed me as the way lepers were viewed, a couple thousand years ago. People wanted nothing to do with me. I was something horrible because I had been following normal guidelines for giving B12 shots, and the state had taken away my license. My marriage fell apart at that time, and I realized that what I had been doing up to that point was trying to be successful in the ways that everyone else told me that I should behave. I followed my father was a dentist, and I followed his concepts and how I established my practice. I obeyed the practice rules that I was taught in school. I tried to do all the things that my now former wife wanted to do, and I realized that not only did it eventually bring me to this dastardly end where I'd lost my license and my means of making a living was severely damaged, but on top of that, I didn't feel good about the way that I was living. So I decided that I was going to change my rules. I changed not my ethics or my moral behaviors, but instead I started just changing my courage. I decided I had to be more heroic and stand up for myself.
Stand up for what you believe, because now giving B12 shots is a common practice, isn't it?
Actually, by the time they took away my license, they had already legalized it for naturopaths in Washington, so they prosecuted me for having done it earlier when it hadn't been legalized. It was a very political action. The main point was that I decided that it was important for me, and I'm a naturopathic doctor, and what I really believe is in the healing power of nature, and what I had been doing was, well, it's more like a drug approach to healing. I was prescribing many different kinds of supplements, and there's nothing wrong with supplements, but it was more focused on eliminating symptoms. And so people would grow dependent on their supplements, and if they choose to do that, and they know that, and they understand it, I think that's fine, but I don't view that as a cure. And so what I ended up becoming more and more involved in was physical medicine, and what I changed was that most physical medicine was also symptom-oriented, like if you can find an herbal pill that takes away your hay fever, that isn't a cure for hay fever. Similarly, finding a physical medicine approach that eliminates your symptoms for a while isn't a cure either. So what I wanted to do was to refresh my life, go back into natural healing, and instead of the symptom-oriented allopathic kinds of naturopathic practices that I'd been involved with before. So it was my lowest point in a sense, but in a way it was the time of greatest potential. So I looked up and I could just see everything was in front of me now instead of all of these limitations.
So do you think that by taking a positive view of those setbacks, misfortunes, and mistakes that occurred at that time, that actually helped you achieve a different vision and set a new course for your life?
Oh, it was crucial. It was only because of the attitude of accepting and determining what to do from that point on to make things work best. That was the only reason that I persisted and survived. Otherwise, I don't know, I would have just been a loser.
So basically, you took a stand for what you believed, and in the process of doing that, it opened up a new world of helping people heal their own bodies through using what you now call neurocranial restructuring. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. So what I had been confronted by with my experiences following the therapies that I had been taught in physical medicine, I had been taught bone manipulation, deep muscle massage, the counter-strain techniques to try to release muscle spasms. And what we always focused on was the location of symptoms. So if someone had neck pain, we focused on their neck. And if they had hip or leg pain, we'd focused on their hip or their leg. And we learned to be very precise with that. We could use x-rays to analyze all different kinds of physical analytic techniques. And what they always did was to figure out how to remove that symptom at the time. But what I found was that people in that situation had to come back a week later, or 2 weeks later, 6 weeks later, to get the same treatment again and again because we didn't deal with the cause as to what was going on. So my work, neurocranial restructuring, came out of my search for how does the body get damaged with these different injuries so that we can then unwind those injuries so that they're no longer in the structure. And if we do that, then the person doesn't have their symptoms return again and again.
Well, I know that I've had a lot of broken bones and injuries being in the skateboard industry, surfing, motorcycle racing, all the different things that create tremendous trauma to the body. And I've seen a gazillion practitioners all over the world trying to find answers to the constant pain that I was in. And I know that after I had my first neurocranial restructuring therapy over a 4-day period of time, that it was one of the most powerful therapies in just helping me get rid of that pain that I've ever discovered. And I just want to thank you for sticking to it and seeking an answer that's a permanent answer, not just a Band-Aid on all the problems that people had. And I know that you suffered tremendously amount of people that were opposed to your efforts to find the permanent cure for the biological and biochemical and just physical complaints that most people have. Obviously, you had to be an optimist. How important was optimism in just fighting against the mold?
Well, if I hadn't been optimistic, I assure you I would never have gotten this far in my efforts, because I've been called so many names by other doctors. Repackaging old concepts, remarketing old concepts, outlandish claims. But one must persist when you see results. I don't know. For me, I knew in my heart and mind that I was on to something, and I wasn't about to give it up just because other people didn't like it.
Where did you get the courage to pursue your dreams to help find the common cause of most of the problems that people have and the resolution of them?
I guess most of the courage came about from my own frustration. What I couldn't do because of my own ethics and moralities, I couldn't lie to people. And so when they came in and they wanted me to work on them, and they said, is it gone now? I couldn't say, yes, it's gone now, or I couldn't say to them that you're permanently injured and you're a permanent patient, because it was wrong. So it was instead my frustration with all this, because somewhere in my heart I knew that there was a way to get them better. I just didn't know what it was. So out of my own sense of obligation, I was forced to try to go out and figure out what was the solution, because I knew it was out there.
You were really willing to experience discomfort in the pursuit of your dream. And how important was it to have a belief that your dreams would actually become reality?
Oh, I think that it was the foundation of everything.
You know, when you're going through something like that and you're trying to follow what you think is right, I think everybody's assailed by doubts and fears every day. Sometimes it's moment by moment, fear of finances, fear of failure, fear of disease. How did you overcome your fears?
Well, it was essentially prayer, meditation, and faith. I just knew that it had to work out in the long run if I persisted and achieved those goals. So I just kept slugging away.
Well, who are the people that helped give you the willpower to change your life for the better and overcome all those problems and difficulties and help support you in achieving your dream?
Well, I think that for the most part it's been the acceptance of my entire family and my friends. Everybody has known that I had a screw loose all my life, and they've accepted me for being that kind of person, so that when I was floundering, everyone has always been very helpful to me, just encouraging me to keep on keeping on.
Yeah, that's really great. Well, you know, it's important to forgive others that upset, offend, and oppose you, since you've had so many people that have been adversaries for you getting out the word about the answer to a lot of the common problems that people see consistently. How important is it to forgive others? Oh,
I think it's fundamental in terms of the quality of your energy, especially if you're going to work as a healer. you have to have your energy in the right place, and holding on to those negative feelings just taints your whole energy, your whole way of being. So it's an ongoing process to always forgive and forget and release those kinds of feelings.
You know, it took a tremendous amount of courage just to help others when you knew that you'd get a lot of flack for it. Is serving others an important source of your joy?
That was why I chose to go into medicine. I wanted to be of service.
You know, with all the stuff that you've been through, and you shared a lot of the stuff that's happened, and it's pretty amazing, how important is having a sense of humor in the face of serious difficulties and problems?
Well, I certainly work hard on maintaining my sense of humor, because otherwise you can take yourself so seriously it can sort of sour you.
Yeah, I think that's true. And who are the heroes in your life? I know that all of us have a need to look up to people and just admire them and try and follow in their footsteps. Who are those people in your life?
Well, when I was a boy, I suppose it was, at that time it was my parents, my father and mother both. Then when I got into medical school, John Bastyr, who they named the medical school for, I really looked up to him, and also his assistant, William Bresnan. And I learned a tremendous amount from them. I learned a lot of information from other doctors, but those two, in terms of their morality and their ethics and their whole behavioral approach, I really appreciated them a lot. And as I've gone on, it's the different spiritual people that I will meet, and sometimes it'll just be you look in someone's eyes and sort of get a glimpse of their heart for a moment, and I find that really inspiring, and I get to meet a lot of interesting people like that in my practice. So for me, any particular day I might meet someone that's really inspiring, and it just takes that little flash, that little moment of recognition, and it starts anew for me.
Who do you feel are the real heroes in our society today? I know I created the Heroes program because I was sort of disgusted with some of the movie stars and the sports stars and the rock stars that are being held up by the media as real heroes and role models. But, I think that the real role models should be the parents, as you suggested, and some of the teachers. Who do you think are the real heroes in our society today?
I think the real heroes in our society today are the people who have the courage to maintain their faith and their convictions in everyday life.
You know, I believe that's true. That's probably the hardest thing in the world, because there's always people that are trying to oppose you and trying to just get you to sell out to the way everybody else is doing it. How does it feel to be recognized as an internet hero? Actually, you're a health hero, so... let me rephrase that question. How does it feel to be recognized as one of the health heroes in the In Search of Heroes program?
Well, it feels like a validation. So I've been working hard for many years. I decided to go into medicine in the 1970s, and it feels like I'm starting to get to reap a little bit of all those seeds that I've sown for so many years.
And this is a unique honor. There's only a few people that I've chosen as health heroes. And why do you think you were selected for the unique honor?
I think it's because neurocranial restructuring works.
Yeah, that's true. I have to testify that that's done more for me than the thousands of chiropractic and osteopathic manipulations that I've ever had. They just seem, as you say, to help for a while, and then you have to go back for the same adjustment. With the treatments that I've been through with you, it's like my body is reversing the aging process, and all the aches and pains from all my broken bones are going away. So of all the people, you definitely deserve to be recognized as one of the great health pioneers in the world today. How do you think being recognized as a health hero is going to change your life?
Well, I hope that what it's going to do is to bring more people to the neurocranial restructuring information. I mean, my current goal is to try to get 500 doctors trained well enough to be able to perform the therapy well. I think if we have 500 doctors out there, that it'll be enough to tip the scales so that physical medicine will start becoming a kind of healing instead of a kind of symptom treatment. Because right now, most physical medicine, the massage, the manipulations, and so forth, most of them are really very little different than taking drugs. And
that's because
I don't like that.
Yeah.
I'm a naturopathic doctor. I'm supposed to help to cure by treating cause. And neurocranial restructuring is, to me, the only one I know of that consistently works.
Well, I know you've got tremendous demand for what you do. You're traveling all over the world, even into South America, where there's a huge demand for learning neurocranial restructuring because it's so inexpensive to perform.
Right. Yeah, it's a low technology, for about $100 and the appropriate skills, a doctor can go to work in NCR. No $250,000 machines or expensive devices or elaborate drugs or anything else are required. It's wonderful. I've worked on people in the back seat of cars before and been able to help them.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. I know that it helped me tremendously, and if people are interested in more information about neurocranial structuring, I know you have a couple of websites. Can you tell us what they are?
Sure. My site is drdeanhowell.com, drdeanhowell.com, and then the site maintained by the NCR Research Institute. We have a nonprofit research organization trying to publish some of our studies showing how effective neurocranial restructuring is, and our major website is ncrdoctors.com.
And how do you spell your last name? I know it's D-R-D-E-A-N, and is it H-O-W-E-L-L?
That's correct.
.com. Well, Dr. Howell, I really appreciate the great work that you're doing, and I have to say that your therapy has been a miracle in my life, and I pray that more and more doctors will learn about it, because if I would have only known about that, or if it would have been available when I was a young person, especially in high school, it could have completely changed my entire life around, from seeking cures for the pain and diseases that I had to just being a productive member of society. So again, I just really appreciate what you're doing, and I thank you for your courage to stand up for what you believe, and just your genius in creating a technology that helps solve the problems at their foundational core and helps people heal up permanently.
Well, thank you, Ralph, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk with people some more.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.